Welcome. My name is Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and you're listening to the Patterns of Possibility podcast. This is a skill building podcast dedicated to helping you replace harmful patterns with new possibilities. In this week's episode, we're going to talk about the difference between agreeing and understanding. A lot of people think that there's no difference between the two, but there's a huge difference when it comes to conversation and connecting with others. Agreeing and understanding are not synonymous. They may feel that way, but they're not. And believing so leads to a pattern where we're always looking for people who agree with us so that we feel more connected. Living in that kind of world, stuck in that pattern, limits your potential to learn and grow. We're going to dissect why people think agreement is the same as understanding. We're going to peel back those layers so that if you are making this mistake of agreeing with people rather than understanding them, or only talking to people that you agree with, that you can get out there and feel comfortable talking to other people who don't necessarily agree with you. With this technique, you will seem interesting, intelligent, and trustworthy to anyone you're talking to. You ready? Let's go. So I was talking to a friend about a recent issue I had with the person I was dating. I was like, hey, they don't treat me the way I want to be treated, but I just feel like I spent so much time with them that we shouldn't break up. And my friend said, just break up with him. That's all you have to do. It's so easy. Why are you making this so difficult? They said, I don't know why you would let anyone treat you that way. I wouldn't let anyone treat me that way. And I'm like, but no, we spent so much time together. We had so many years and it was wonderful. You know, when it's really good, it's really good. And again, they scowl at me and they're like, just break up. But you don't understand. What I'm hearing from my friend is don't analyze this. Don't think about it. It's a no-brainer. If I was in your situation, I would break up. But they don't even understand my situation. In fact, I found it really difficult to continue wanting to talk to them. Have you ever had a conversation like that with a friend or a coworker or a family member where you're trying to get your point across, but they just stonewall you? Or maybe it's something that you've done. Maybe you had a friend come to you with some news or some information that you couldn't relate to, that you didn't agree with, and you just listened to them, didn't say anything, or maybe you gave them a bunch of unsolicited advice, or maybe you dismissed it. Oh, that's nice. If you did any of those things, chances are you've shown that you weren't interested in them. You may have given the impression that you don't care to understand them, or that you have any desire to get to know them at all. Think about it. Is there someone in your life that's telling you, constantly telling you, you don't listen to me? What they really mean to say is, you haven't demonstrated that you understand how I feel. You haven't demonstrated that you care about what I think. You haven't demonstrated that you're interested in anything I have to say. If you want to appear interesting, intelligent, and trustworthy to the person you're speaking to, then you want to demonstrate that you understand what they're saying. You don't have to agree, ever, but you do have to demonstrate that you understand. When we're connecting with people in conversation, we do a few things. It's a process. First, they're speaking and we listen. And we're listening and making sense of the information that they're giving us. That's understanding. And then, of everything we understand, we make a decision about it. We decide whether we want to agree with it or disagree with it. My point is, you can't agree or disagree with something that you don't understand. You always have to have understanding first. An easy way to think of understanding is that you know the facts and feelings of the person speaking to you. That's it. Whereas, an easy way of thinking of agreement is that you know the facts and the feeling of the person speaking to you, and those facts and feelings match your own. Then you're in agreement. It's very easy to get those two tangled up because those differences are very subtle, but they're very important. You cannot have one without the other. That is, you cannot agree or disagree with something that you don't understand. The reason why you'd want to be around someone you agree with is because the work of understanding them is already done. You know what their experiences were like because you've had them yourself. You know how they feel about XYZ situation because you already agree. You feel the same way. But don't get it twisted. Understanding comes first, then agreement. Being in agreement is not a condition to make a connection. It's very natural for us to gravitate to people who have the same experiences that we do, who share similarities, who grew up the same way, who had the same food traditions, who do the same things, speak the same language, right? We want to be around people that we can see ourselves in. We want to be around people that know what we've experienced. We feel safer around those people. That's why people think agreeing is so important. When it comes to agreement is all inward facing. It's all focused on you. In terms of connecting with people, if people agree with you, if you agree with them, it's all about you. You can see yourself reflected in them. That gives you a sense of comfort. But in order to connect with someone who doesn't agree with you, who may not have the same experiences, who may not share your story, your history, you have to make that effort to understand. One more time, you don't have to agree with someone to understand them. You don't have to agree with someone to make a connection. You only need to demonstrate that you understand them. And this works because when you're trying to understand someone else, someone who doesn't have your same experiences, you are focused on them. It's not about you, it's about them. When you're trying to understand someone, you want to know what their beat is for the situation they're describing. That's the best way to be able to understand the person that's talking to you. If you know what their beliefs, emotions, actions, and thoughts are in a given situation, you know them. And if you tell them what their beat is, you'll be connected. Wearing a mask these days is one of those divisive topics. Some people balk at the idea, and some people embrace it. If you encounter someone who's wearing a mask and you do not believe that we should be wearing masks, your primitive primate brain is thinking, that's the enemy. And it's the exact same for the other side. Your primitive primate brain is going, they're not like us. Be careful. Approach with caution. It's not that you're afraid of people who don't agree with you. It's more like you fear what you don't understand. That's why understanding is so important. Because we're above that. You and I, we have cognition. We can think. We can rationalize. You don't have to be afraid. You can dispel all of that with a little bit of knowledge, with understanding. I remember I had a coworker do something that was outrageous to me. It was really hard for me to wrap my mind around. They described an experience where they went to a restaurant and they ordered a burger and fries and they got great service. My coworker was completely dissatisfied with the meal that they got. It was a burger that was just way too small. So they wrote the company to say, this was way too small and it's unacceptable. The company responded with, we're so sorry, sir. Here's a coupon. Now, what's surprising about that for me is that I would have not thought to write the company to say, I have a problem with the portion of the food and I want a refund, or I demand that you do something about it. It's something that hadn't crossed my mind as a possibility. I had to imagine what kind of experiences they had that would shape that belief. And it was difficult because I came from a place where we just didn't do that. I was happy with what I got. I thought, are you that petty? Are you that entitled and spoiled that you have to go and write a letter because your food wasn't as big as you wanted it to be? But that was only because I was intimidated and afraid and confused by the whole thing. You see, this person had immense power to me. They had the power to complain about something that seemed insignificant to me and have a big company react and respond to them. It was just mind-boggling to me. And it's scary. I was afraid, like, what else could they do? After learning more about the situation and the person, I became more comfortable with it. It's just that they have this belief that they're able to complain and be compensated for it. And that's it. And I didn't have that belief. I didn't see a gap between us that I couldn't close. In fact, it was something for me to try. So I learned from the experience. Well, you demonstrate understanding with active listening. Maybe you've heard the term before, but active listening is really focusing on the other person. Understanding is all about what they believe, clearing everything out of your mind to only focus on what's coming in with them. Because when you're new at this active listening, you're going to get a lot of different thoughts that come in your mind. You're going to judge, and you're going to be annoyed, and you're going to feel all kinds of ways about whatever they're saying, because it's going to affect you. What you need to do is turn down the dial on those feelings and those thoughts and those ideas that are coming up when the other person is speaking. Quiet them. Process what they are saying to you. When you finish listening to them, demonstrate that you understood what they said by repeating back or paraphrasing what you heard, and they'll tell you if you got it right. And if you did, congratulations, you made a connection. And if you didn't, just try again. It's simple, but it's not easy. Turning down the dial of your emotions and your thoughts and your ideas, that's the most difficult part of it. But practice. You'll get really great at it. And if you do this, you'll be seen as thoughtful, sincere, understanding, interesting, easy to talk to, compassionate, and on and on and on. And you'll find that more people will want to share information with you. More people will want to connect and talk to you. Because people fear what they don't understand, and people fear that they won't be understood. You understand them, and they feel understood. You've created a safe environment. My name is Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and you have been listening to the Patterns of Possibility podcast. I hope that you found today's episode entertaining and informative. If you like the podcast and would like to help me get discovered, leave a 5-star review, and also share with your friends or anyone you think might find this interesting. And remember, where there's a pattern, there's a possibility. This podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not meant to diagnose or treat any conditions. If you are having a medical emergency, go to your nearest emergency center and explain to them that you would have been there sooner if you hadn't been listening to this podcast. I'll see you next time.